I don't want my team to feel safe. Like, I want them to be striving to move forward. I want them to be bold. I want them to be courageous. I want them to do all this.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show, and we are continuing our series on the coaches that don't suck. So obviously, I had to invite my friend, Nate Tudis, to the show. Hey, Nate, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great.
So
Thanks for having
good.
me on. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My gosh, we have needed to do this for so long. I'm glad we finally got to do it. Dear listener, Nate Tudis helps coaches and consultants unlock the potential in their business, all while staying in their zone of genius. By combining strategy with disciplined execution, he applies the Mind Vault business system to help his clients attract, acquire, and ascend their ideal clients, and then automate their process so they can streamline lead flow, optimize customer journeys, and build scalable results. With over 15 years in complex B2B sales, mastery of NLP, like this guy's a deep nerd on NLP, just to go off script a little bit here, but he has proven his processes and brings systems, strategy, and discipline needed to unlock your full potential. So for those ready to close the gap between where they are and where they want to be, Nate provides the clarity, systems, and support to make it happen. So friends, you need to know that I call my dear friend Nate here Nateflix. This dude is nuts smart, and I'm so glad to have you on the show. So Nate, catch us up a little bit on what are you working on now? And like, I know you've been in the space in the industry for a few years, but like, what are you working on now, and what really inspired you to get here? Like, why is this such an important thing?
Well, what I'm working on right now is simplicity. Simplicity scales. And as you know, I have a lot of things that go through my mind. So over the years, I've taken a ton of stuff and just gone after absolutely everything. Like you probably recall from conversation we've had last year, I was starting 2 new businesses onto what I already had and was growing and building. And I got to a point where I think it was like mid-November where I was like, what am I doing? Like I literally had a moment in a mastermind, sat there, had the hot seat, asked the question, and Dean Graziosi was like, okay, so you want to start new businesses. How's the first one doing? Like, if you walk away, is it going to exist tomorrow? Is it going to continue to grow? Is it going to continue to scale? And I was like, no. And he's like, okay, set those other ideas aside, focus on that one thing until it is so systematic, you can step away and it can run without you.
That's so good. You know, Nate, it's so funny because like if there's anybody that I would bet on for being able to run 2 or 3 horses at once, it would be you, because you're crazy disciplined, you're insanely smart, you're passionate about what you do. I have to imagine that you heard that advice somewhere before, that you needed to focus. And I'm just so curious because this happens for all of us, I think, as entrepreneurs, as we hear a piece of advice or something gets repeated to us over and over again. What do you think was unique and special about that moment when you heard it and you like heard it? Like you're like, got it. I'm going to make a change here and I'm going to focus. What do you think was different about this?
I think what was different was, and I'm trying to remember, it was John Cheplack who said it, so I have to give him credit. But it was because that time when I heard that from Dean was like 2 years ago, right? So I listened to Dean for like 8 months and then was like, you know what? I'm getting frustrated that the business I'm working on currently isn't growing and systematizing as fast as I want it to. So I'm going to go over and pay attention to this shiny little object over here, right?
Yeah.
And as you know from also knowing John, like he is all about like, work works. You got to focus. You got to put in the hard work and you got to get it done. And something about he and I were having a conversation that November. And I remember just being like, I screwed up. Like to your point, I was able to handle all those different things, but the focus and the energy of my brain power wasn't going towards just that one thing. So I wasn't getting the huge leaps and progress that I should have been getting. And case in point, I focused, and literally between mid-November and now, I've systematized more things in that short, not even 2-month time frame than I probably did in the last 5 years.
That's outstanding. And congratulations on all that progress. And I love this story because so many of us do face the same thing where we're hearing advice, we know what the advice is, but then, you just kind of sneak into those old ways of thinking, or those old beliefs, because we're just like hanging on to the old way. And I had a really similar sort of a transition recently as well, of needing to just like focus on one, like pull it into one. And even though I had just the one brand and, really the one avatar, I was running 3 very disparate and different offers. It always felt like I had to promote in this way to these people, and to that way with those people, and to that way with those people. And one of the frustrations that I was having was I always felt like I was working on the wrong thing. Like every time I sat down to my desk, there were 2 other things that needed work. And even if I was working on the one thing, I was like split. And so I went through a super similar thing where I was like, wait, hang on a second. One unifying model, one unifying structure, one unifying methodology, and really like one avatar. So I do still have choices in my company about how people can work with me at different levels of commitment. Mm-hmm. Because that's just the nature of how we are. And I think it's really suitable to the customer journey for my particular client. But boy, oh boy, like the relief of that focus. My gosh. So good. So talk to me a little bit about your genius zone. So you got give us a little backstory, like why sales, why this, why NLP, why systems?
Oh, so I'll try to give you the short abridged version, because these aren't 90-minute podcasts.
I know that they're fun. There's like a little pressure.
Yeah, I was the guy that like, I went to college because I was kind of forced to, right? Like I didn't want to, but I was the youngest of 4, and it was like, nope, the other 3 kids have gone, you're going to go. So like, okay, fine, I'll go. But my dad was in sales all of my life. So I always saw sales as like this, and he was a bit of a workaholic, right? And so I didn't inherit any of that whatsoever. But he would work like crazy. So I just remember when I went into college being like, well, the one thing I don't want to do is sales. Like I don't want to get into selling. That's not where I want to be, all that kind of stuff. And then as would happen, when I got out of the Marine Corps into the civilian world and was working, the owner of the business that I was working for saw that I was really good in front of people, because we had to train people whenever we got done installing a system. We installed fall protection when people, worked at heights and things like that. And he was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at sales. There's a great earning potential. So I moved into that, shortcut a number of years of me growing and moving through different companies and whatnot, and just getting skilled at it. I started working for a CRM company, and customer relationship management, for those who don't know what CRM is. And it was complex B2B sales. So we were working on sales processes that were, sometimes the process literally was a 24-month sales cycle from start to end. It was 2 years. It was, tons of engineering, tons of stakeholders involved, all that kind of stuff. So I had to get really, really good at digging in and understanding the process and where the gaps were and where that process would start to fall apart, so that we could kind of fill that gap with a step and usually a checklist of some kind, because that's what our tool is really, really good at. And then building the training around that as well. So that's kind of how the sales and the process side of it came to be. And then the NLP, I was reading Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. He referenced one of his mentors was a guy named Dr. Richard Bandler. And I remember thinking in my head, like, if he was a mentor to Tony, like Tony's 20, 30 years my senior. So I'm like, Dr. Bandler's got to be 20, 30 years Tony's senior. So there's no way he's still even alive, but I like to swim upstream. So I'm like, I'll find the source. I Google, and he was offering a sales training in Orlando. And the sales training was starting 2 days before my wife and I were already scheduled to fly in for a vacation that we had planned for months.
That's kismet, Yeah. Don't you just love those moments? That's amazing. So
went to my wife and was like, how about if I fly down early? I'll go to the training. The training ends like midday on Sunday. You're flying in Sunday, like late afternoon. So I'll just drive to the airport, pick you up. And everything changed after that.
I love that. And Nate, you're known for your coaching and your ability, your way with people. You're dang good at it. So one question that I like to ask in this segment is, what are 3 things that help a coach not to suck? What do you think is really important?
That help a coach not to suck. I mean, the cliche is listen, right? But I think, and coming from an NLP background, I think it comes down to what you're actually listening for, right? Words have meaning. One of the things I always like to say is that everybody kind of creates their own dictionary. And so I think a lot of times, whether you're talking as a coach or whether you're talking as a salesperson or what have you, you really have to get like insanely curious about what that word means for a particular individual, right? So in NLP, we have words that we refer to as ambiguities because they're very ambiguous, and someone will say it, and usually the person assumes, oh, I know what they mean by that word, so they just kind of keep going. But I especially learned one of the things that really helped me in sales, and this was one of those that for some people, NLP teaches you something new, and for some people, NLP pulls the curtain on back of this is why you're good, and now you can actually understand what you did well and train it to other people, right? So I kind of got the best of both worlds there, but one of the things I was always really good at is I always assumed I didn't know what they meant when they said they wanted growth, right?
That is a power move. I actually just did a coaching call today, and I had a client was using the word overwhelm, a lot, like a lot. And for them, it was this punctuating end to the sentence, but it also seemed to be that moment where they gave up. And for me, the word overwhelm means one thing, but it really felt like it meant something different to her. So I love that. I love that distinction. Keep going.
Well, prime example, I had a coaching client that I was speaking to. He's a sales leader that has a team. And one of the things that I always work on in my coaching is something that I learned from a book. I didn't learn it directly from the guy, but Bill Campbell, who, if you haven't read The $1 Trillion Coach, go get that book and read it, because Bill Campbell was like the top coach to all of the Silicon Valley for years and years and years and years. And one of the things that every 2 weeks he would ask the people he was coaching is, what are you doing? Not what are you thinking about doing or what do you have planned, but what are you doing now in the moment to build an environment of psychological safety so that people challenge the status quo, right? Which sounds great. So I was like, cool. And every person I've worked with that I've done coaching and I've asked them that question, it always brings an interesting development. But this particular individual, I asked the question of what he was doing to build psychological safety, and he finally just goes, I gotta admit, I don't like that word. And I was like, what word? Psychological or safety? And he goes, safety. He goes, I don't want my team to feel safe. Like, I want them to be striving to move forward. I want them to be bold. I want them to be courageous. I want them to do all this. And I'm like, interesting. When I was saying safe, you were taking it as like playing safe and playing small and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, pretty sure the way Bill Campbell meant it was like they need to feel safe that they can challenge, that they can be bold, that they can do all that stuff, and they're not going to get their head chewed off or they're not going to get fired, right? So we changed for him. Now, instead of saying, hey, what are you doing to build psychological safety? I say, what are you doing to build trust and courage to challenge the status quo? I just flat out say it. And he's had huge growth in his team since then. So
yeah, that's such a powerful distinction. This is one of the reasons, one, we're very good friends, but also I love coaching in general, is there is so much opportunity to develop real mastery around, yes, the words you choose and your presence and your technique, your timing, like all of these things really affect your influence and the impact you're going to have on your client and their results. So real quick, two more things that a coach should be on the lookout to make sure they don't suck.
Oh, two more things I would say is, this comes down to my process nature, but look at everywhere in your process where there's a why path. So where is there a moment where your customer can either say yes or they can say no, right? And make sure that you have both of those covered. Most of the time, we cover the yes path. We know what happens when they say yes and they go to the next step. What we don't know and what we miss a lot of times, especially, and I'm talking not just coaching, like the actual art of coaching itself. I'm talking about the business of coaching and actually being a business owner, right? A lot of times what we miss is that no path. And if you think about all the work you do to get someone to a coaching call, to pay you to coach them, and then you get to a point where you're on a sales call, you have the opportunity to close, you screw up or whatever happens and they say no, and then you just kind of let that lead go away. It's like, if you just took the volume of leads that you lose and you saved 30% of them, that's a huge number, right? So
this is actually something, Nate, that you really were just of an incredible service in helping us see, was that we could be way more intentional in our relationships and the loop backs and the friendly asks of new connections and checking in where people are. Like, you have a big talent on this. Like, it was so clear. Dear listener, we sat down for, I want to say it was like a 45-minute call, and it was just the same thing, like boom, boom, boom. Like, you seem good on the yes side of these why junctions, but then where's your loop back? Where's your follow through? Where's your tracking? And we implemented after that call. I gotta tell you, I talked to a lot of coaches, and a lot of coaches give me advice. Not too many of them do I like turn around and implement immediately after the call, but it made a massive difference in our results last year. And I actually really loved it, mainly because I felt like a better person. Like, the way I was relating to people, just like knowing that even if it was like a no and not right now, or I'm even getting ignored, I'm not ignoring. And that made me feel better in the process. So anyway, I just thought you should know that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I would say that would probably be the third thing that I would throw in there. I'll just kind of tie a bow around that, is when you ask or when you receive a referral, always keep that communication loop together and open, so to speak, because one of the worst things you can do is get a referral. And coaches, a lot of times, especially if you do good work, you get referrals just intrinsically. It just happens. But the thing that I see a lot of people screw up on in sales, in coaching, in business, everything, is they get a referral and then they get so focused on the referral, they forget about the person that gave them the referral. And they never loop back and say, hey, I just want you to know, you recommended Amanda to me. I got a hold of Amanda. We've got a call set up next week. I'll let you know how the call goes. And then when they have the call, loop back again and say, hey, just so you know, had the call with Amanda, went great, think it's going to be a great relationship. She decided to move forward with the program, whatever. But it's so often that just gets kind of left. And it's like, well, I recommended the restaurant. Did you like it? Did you not? Did I give
it? It's 30 seconds to let somebody know that they were an important part of the story in your day. And, that was a huge aha that you shared with us. And I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah, I actually felt rude when you said it. I was like, oh my God, how many times have I missed that? So we're much more diligent about that now.
That's good to hear.
So good. Well, Nate, what's the best way for people to follow you if they wanted to connect to understand more about what you do?
The best way is probably just to go to Instagram and follow me at Nate Tudis. I'm obviously active there, so you'll be able to see any of the posts that I make.
I love it. Awesome. Awesome. And, dear listener, we have a little process around this podcast. So if you prefer websites and all of that jazz, you'll find that in the show notes. And before you go, make sure you smash that subscribe button so you don't miss another episode. And Nate really showed up. He is a very prepared person. So I think he deserves five stars. Yeah, I think he really does. So if you feel the same way, make sure you leave a review. It really does help people to discover the podcast and discover these episodes. And finally, if you have a friend that would really benefit from hearing about some of the processes that we talked about, the attitudes that we talked about, just share this short episode with them. Just grab the link, send it to them in a text or a DM, and spread the love. So thank you so much for joining in the Amanda Kaufman Show, and we will see you next time.